Welcome back to Beyond the Books, the show where we help you learn to survive and thrive after college. Today we're going to be talking about change, both the voluntary type of change and the involuntary type of change. To do that, we're joined by a very special guest, Kyra Meyer-Johanson. Kyra is a tech executive who works in B2B SaaS. She's worked across a ton of different size businesses, from startups to giant corporations, in a ton of different types of roles, from sales to marketing to sales enablement.
And
she has her own coaching business where she coaches
All right.
employees of big businesses and students at MBA programs how to navigate their careers. And most importantly, she is my better half and somehow is still here.
Yeah, honestly, thank God for Tyler. Everybody needs a Tyler in their life.
That's so sweet of you to say. I need a Tyler in my life too. That's why he's my co-host.
I know. I'm like, now we're like doing it, like we're duking it out. Who gets
no,
more
that's not a
Tyler's
competition.
time?
You know,
I mean, it is. It is. Just
plenty of Tyler to go around.
Feel free to throw out some good things over here.
Sending the love back. I'm like, okay, enough on me there.
No, but we also have supported each other throughout our personal lives, and that's actually what I wanted to kind of schedule a little nonsense here, because y'all are together, and we've all had this very interesting role in each other's lives. So for folks who don't know, Tyler actually married my wife and I. He is an ordained minister, so we call him Father Tyler.
Church.
Let's go. So that was a really special moment. And then I actually chauffeured Tyler to you onto your first date.
That's
true.
That's right.
And I wanted to ask you all, how was that first date?
It was great.
Give us the details.
I mean, we're here.
That's right.
Yeah, like 10 years later.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's right.
seriously,
More than 10
what a
years.
milestone. Yeah, we recently celebrated our 10-year anniversary.
And
we bonded over good food and good people, and I think that's...
What more do you need in life?
Yeah.
Seriously, if you're navigating change, good food, good people, that's all you need.
There you go. And we will end the episode there. Just get good food and good people. No, the spirit of today's episode is about navigating change. And I think we're going to spend 2 different segments talking about kind of this high-level philosophical, like, how can we think about change as a whole? And then we'll get more into the technical.
Yeah.
So in starting in this philosophical kind of thinking about navigating change, or framework for change, we know that there are 3 things in life that are very certain. There's death, there's taxes,
unfortunately,
and there's change. Yeah, borrowing Benjamin Franklin and adding the kind of personal change on top. So knowing that change is inevitable, and as humans, we all have to face change. Coach Kyra, I wanted to ask you, like, how do you have a framework, or how do you think about just change as a whole and then navigating it?
Like, if I go really macro, I just want to back up and go and just acknowledge that the level and rate of change that's happening today, I think, is completely new to the human species. I don't think any of us have been going through this rate of change at this pace before. So I would say that building resilience, building a growth mindset, working on learning to be more adaptable is probably one of the most differentiating skills you can build today in the workplace. You're a father. What is your son going to be when he grows up? Who knows? We don't even know what the jobs are going to be in 5 years, let alone 15. So when navigating change, the best metaphor I've ever heard was not mine. I need to look up and give this person the credit. I don't know where this comes from, but it's this idea of every person is a boat in the ocean. And the boat is always going to get rocked a little bit, right? We're going to have like days where the waves are a little like less rocky, some days where they're really rocky. Sometimes you're going to see the storm coming. Sometimes you're not going to see the storm coming. And the goal is to allow yourself to be rocked, but then find your balance again. And the best way to find your balance is by not letting the water in your boat. So if you let the water in your boat, you're going to sink. And the best way to not let the water in your boat is to anchor down, ground down, and allow the kerfuffle to happen a little bit, but not let the water get to you too much, right? Not let it get in too much. It's going to happen, but it's impossible to... Anyway, this is easier said than done, but that's my metaphor.
I feel like earlier in my career, I like that you're talking about anchoring, because I feel like earlier in my career was grab a bucket and just start scooping it out, but it's just getting full in, and you're just like, how do I do this? So, that sounds a lot more like elevated and smart than my original method. I'm glad you're here to tell us it.
I mean, I think all of us early in our career felt like that, and I wish somebody had told me, like, Kyra, like, you're going to be okay. You know
that meme where the guy's like, y'all getting paid for this? I'm thinking, like, y'all got a boat? I'm doggy paddling in the ocean, just up to here.
Like, send me your little life raft.
No, I love the analogy, because I think the waves of the ocean really do symbolize that change is constant, and there are some changes that are tiny little things that you barely feel, like in a boat.
Yep.
And there are sometimes these monstrous things that can come off as catastrophic, but there are ways that you can navigate it. We're going to chat about those in a second. You touched on two kind of attributes or mentalities that I wanted to kind of double click on a little bit. One was around emotional resilience. One was around growth versus fixed mindset. Can you tell us a little bit about emotional resilience? Because I think that part is important. There's no such thing as preparing for every single change, because that's what like life is, but you can almost mitigate its impacts by having other areas where things are good that you're happy. Tell us a little bit more about this emotional resilience.
Totally. Something that I do a lot in my coaching practice, and this sounds really silly, but it's helping my coachees savor the glimmers, right? So like there's so many times when we talk about triggers and change being hard and all the challenge around that, and I don't want to minimize that, but I also think there are so many moments that are tiny. You see a flower growing on the sidewalk, you like hug a baby. I don't know. There's so many little things that can be glimmers and can be like so rejuvenating. And those are things that can really help you build resilience if you savor those. And like savor meditations are really good, where you, you savor that moment as much as you can. And if you don't always want to have your phone, you can actually do that meditation and it'll give you a little image in your mind that you can reflect back to. And when you're having a tough time, you can think back to that glimmer. So if we're going back to the boat analogy, these little glimmers will make your boat a little stronger. A little less maybe rocky.
Yeah, improvements to the boat. I think like gratitude, I would also add, is a great way to build emotional resilience, because you learn to take grace and thankfulness in the everyday things, especially when things are going right. Sometimes it feels like when things are going right, they go by so quickly, and then you're back in this, oh my gosh, there's this change, and I wish I had that last thing. And it's if you actually take time to give gratitude and thanks for that, I feel like that actually really helps.
It's also just a good way of thinking about how to slow down, because I feel like we try so much to get through change especially when it's hard change, and we're so focused on getting to the other side that we get to the other side, and immediately when we're on the other side, we're just thinking back to the change versus being like, oh, we made it here. What is this? This is the payoff of all this work. But instead, normally then more change comes and we just jump to the next change. So I love this idea of just sitting in the moment and taking away all those glimmers.
I think having a support group, you said having a Tyler, that's the other thing. Like, and to me, emotional resilience is essentially the summation of all of these positive things that you can bank into like this boat of yours that add additional layers of protection. Because again, you can't protect from a layoff if you've never been laid off, but what you can do is just make sure everything else in life is good and you're happy. The other area that I wanted to chat about is around this like growth mindset. People have probably heard that a lot, but can you tell us a little bit more about growth versus fix and why in particular it might be helpful to navigate change?
So I mean, the very natural human response to change is fear, right? And fear pulls us into kind of a fixed mindset very naturally. When we clench up, when our bodies get stressed, our brain starts to look for danger, like naturally. That's what it is designed to do. It's a great system and it works very well. So let's say you didn't get invited to a party, right?
Been there a lot.
Tyler never invites me to anything.
So dramatic. Okay, but anyway, so let's say you go to this, you didn't get invited to the party, and maybe this was a really close friend of you that didn't invite you, and you feel really hurt. Maybe then you start going into, oh no, like, do they not like me anymore, or what's going on? And if you can, rather than just immediately react, relax and just sit with the feeling, allow it to be there, breathe through it, and then think about how you want to respond. And you maybe pick a value, right? Like, what if I was a little bit more curious in this moment? Because I like being curious. That's one of my values. And maybe it's that, this friend knew someone was going to be there that you really didn't like and was being thoughtful, right? Like, who knows? But that's the growth mindset. The growth mindset is where your wise mind kind of comes in, and it's like the smart, kind voice that's like, oh, like, they're there. It's probably totally fine. Reach out to your friend and see what's going on versus, oh my gosh, we're not going to be friends anymore. But that's how I like to describe those two mindsets. And it is an act to move yourself from fixed to growth. And I think a lot of people think, oh, I can just force myself into growth. But like, that's actually, you don't want to react, you want to respond. And responding takes a moment. So give yourself time, slow down, like you were saying. And I think that's That's the best advice I can give around
This
cultivating growth.
This might be the plot of Inside Out 3. I feel like it's gotta be.
Dude, Inside Out 2 is a great
the wise mind, the different characters.
Totally. Yeah, it's such a great example of anxiety. And I don't know if you've seen Inside Out 2, but
haven't.
Yeah, like talk about fixed mindset. There's this one scene in the movie where anxiety.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Go watch it and tell me what you think.
So and you'll get it.
You're right.
And I was taught by one of my mentors a saying that's kind of funny, a little morbid, but it's don't let a good crisis go to waste. I bring that up in the context of growth mindset, actually, because in some ways when we're challenged and our boat is rocked, you can look at it as, wow, this is a travesty and I'm suffering and this is horrible.
Right.
Or you can look at it and say, is there calm that I can provide for my other team members who their boat is not as stable as my own because I have emotional resilience and I have a growth mindset. There is another way to think about it, or if you're going through a reorg and everything is up in the air, can I step up and provide some value or learn something new in the context of this reorg? So the mindset is not, I am, suffering, I am a victim, but this could be a cool opportunity for me to do something positive, to learn something, to grow outside my comfort zone, to mentor others who maybe don't have as stable as a boat that I do. Like, it's going to rock me, but I can look down and see some new grads or whatever, or an intern who feels probably even worse than me. And is there an opportunity for me to shape this into something positive?
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah, I love the leadership angle of this too, because it sounds like as you're just cultivating these skills, you're just learning to be a leader. Totally. You're learning to lift all tides in these, crazy times and just help everyone out. And honestly, that's all we can do at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I actually have a good example. I think I mentioned this to folks in the first episode, and I'll continue to mention, but I was laid off last year, and this was 2 months before my son was due. So talk about just a really stressful time. Yeah. There's no preparing for that kind of change. No. That's what I want to say. There's no preparing for that kind of change all in this time. But I wanted to use my own experience to weave in this concept of an emotional resilience aspect of it, as well as this growth mindset, because in one way, right, having, I think, the happiness and joy of being an expecting dad actually built this very interesting layer that distanced me from how much I'm fulfilled by work, right? I am still fulfilled by work, but not to the degree that I was before I realized I was going to be a dad, because you start to come to your senses in terms of how much time you have in a day and how much of that time you want to spend with a little stink butt who's crawling around, right?
I want to hang out. I want to hang out with this.
Right.
I want to quit my job.
That's what I'm saying. Well,
hang out with our
we're gonna have to have a baby soon.
Oh God!
I don't like that. That's on the body.
Took it there.
I love it.
Oh man.
Do shenanigans like you said you would.
Hey, this is great. Now you can hold us against him.
It is on record. All right.
Okay.
Continue.
No, and so I think like there's that level of emotional resilience for me where I'm looking forward to other things in life. And when I got laid off, because I had already a little bit of this realization, it didn't impact me as much.
Yeah.
It didn't impact me as some of my coworkers who, whether they're parents or not, like that's not the point, but do they have the emotional resilience, this kind of funds deposited so that as it gets withdrawn with stress and all these things, there's still a little bit left in the balance, right? Yeah. So like to me, that's Boba Talks was another piece of it actually, right? True. You learn to be fulfilled with helping other people, and it becomes something where it's like, I can't get laid off from being a mentor. Yeah, I can't get laid off from helping people. So those are the kinds of things when I say, banking those glimmers, right? Like these are the kind of things that you can do to simply pad the impact that something stressful like a layoff can have. Yeah. And then really quickly to growth mindset, right? I actually had to shelve my product management career, which I know is a surprise. You're like, wait, growth mindset, like that sounds like a negative thing. But the growth part is this. Product can always be there. So the context is I actually was enrolled in this program that was like an apprenticeship for product management. I actually passed. I got all the things I needed to do. I was ready to go move into product management.
Very hard to do, by the way. He's
definitely
a baller.
Definitely.
Thank you. I appreciate that. See, you need a Tyler in your life.
That's all I'm here.
That's what I'm saying.
So I know. So the growth mindset for me is actually not about career, because that can be there at any time. The growth mindset for me is same as being a father, but it allowed me this reframing allowed me to get into a program manager role, which I've had 8+ career years doing. And it made the learning curve smaller so that I wasn't spending 50, 60 hours a week at work. And that time could be spent with my new son.
100%.
And to me, the growth mindset is realizing that maybe this isn't what I wanted, but this could have been exactly what I needed, even though I didn't know I needed it, right?
True.
It wasn't until after that I was like, dude, I can't imagine if I had to start a new career, a new team, a new concept, and also be a new parent. At least other things in life are stable, including a job, being a program manager.
Yeah.
100%.
So I wanted to share that experience and kind of weave these two pieces together.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of pull it from the other side of the equation. I think many of you know from the first episode, if you've been sticking along with us, but I decided to quit my job in corporate and kind of start my own business.
Yeah, no pressure.
I'm a little crazy.
Totally chill.
But I think these two mental disciplines I used entirely to shape that decision and also shape the way that I actually made the change.
Yeah.
I'll start with emotional resilience. When you're talking about kind of your, I like when earlier we were talking about, there is no boat. That's how entrepreneurship feels. Right. You're just in the ocean and you're just like, is there a boat? Is there a piece of wood anywhere? Is there anything I can use? Yeah. But all entrepreneurship is just these ups and downs of these crazy big, great feelings. You got your first client, and you're like, yes, I'm doing this. You don't hear back from a client that you wanted, and you're like, wow, I should start looking for jobs. What have I done? So it's like that. It's just a roller coaster of ups and downs, and you're just in the ocean, just hanging out. Maybe there's a shark, maybe there's a boat.
Hello. Yeah, but you're
no, please don't take me.
But you're so resilient. I feel like we could all learn from you in terms of that, because I can't. I'm scared to quit my job to do my own thing, and I think it's
to that point though. Like the only reason I was able to get that resilience is to your point of the glimmers, banking glimmers along the way. I've been working in marketing for 10 years, or a little over 10 years, and I had just been having these moments where I'd gone through all these changes. I'd found the things that I loved. I found the things I didn't love so much. But all the things, to the point of glimmers, the things that lit me up a lot of the time were the freedom to work on projects I really wanted to work on, the autonomy to just like get stuff done and to do my best work and put myself in situations where I could do that. So as I banked these glimmers, it gave me the opportunity to kind of decide proactively, I want to chase the glimmers. How do I chase the glimmers? To do that, I needed the scary side of being able to leave the flexibility and the just safety of a business.
Golden handcuffs
sometimes. But like I had to make that leap, and that was the hardest part. So talking about growth mindset, you're kind of in this situation where you're like, well, I think I know where I want to go. And in order to get there, I need to have this bravery I don't think I've ever had before. And I need to just commit to myself and know that whichever way this works out, it's going to work out in, however it does. And I'm going to do my damnedest. I'm going to try my best, but it might not work, but like, let's go for it. Cause this is where I think I want to go.
Side note, it's working. So
it's working.
I'm still here, which is nice, but
it all works out, even though it was like that scary leap.
But exactly. But it's one of those things where these two mindsets, it's not just the things that come at you. It's also the decisions you want to shape for yourself in the future. And I think that honestly, having that realization kind of further along in my career enabled me to make this type of decision, this type of leap, and also the support of a caring partner who also helps me with health insurance. So, I got lucky on that front for sure. Yeah, we go back to the triangle episode. If health insurance is one of your triangles, maybe skip entrepreneurship for a second. But there you go. In any case, a conversation for another day.
No, that's nice. I love that you shared. Like I kind of shared like somewhat of a negative or like a unforeseen change, and you're talking about a planned change. So
there's no negative, positive side. It's just change.
It just is.
I think it's interesting to understand that like sometimes we think about change and we only think that it's an impact to us. And I think that thinking about change as what change do I want to create is another muscle you just build from all this resilient change that you probably get from reactive stuff. So in any case.
Yeah. I have one more concept.
Cool. Please. Yeah.
All the concepts.
One other thing that I think is really interesting that I've learned so far in my career is I think I used to want to control everything. Like I know I want to be a product manager, so I'm going to like follow that path. And I got really rigid with it versus allowing life to sometimes hand you things that you didn't realize you needed. Right. Like I think, and when you can learn to let go of control and surrender, as like woo woo as that sounds, sometimes the glimmers will find you faster. Like sometimes like follow your joy, follow like the things that kind of light you up and like kind of flow with it. Like you're in a river or something like on a raft, and like rather than trying to pull the raft in the other direction, if you're naturally flowing in a direction, that's like follow that.
Yeah.
All my clients who have an inkling that they're like, I kind of want to do this thing, but I'm not sure. It's like, follow the thing that you follow that. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. Like, you know, the thing that you're a little scared to do, if it's not a little bit scary, is it even worth doing? Yeah. Right. So just like lean into the fear a little bit, and, but, you know, don't completely like, I mean, although unless you're like Tyler and you want to just swim in the ocean, like, you know, try it out. But it's like, however you want to navigate it, do you?
Yeah.
You do you.
But it sometimes feels like it's easier said than done. But I think to the point of just building these muscles over time, it helps you get more resilient and able to.
Or if you want to inflate a 16-foot unicorn raft down Russian River and do that for 2 hours, do that and enjoy the We'll have to tell that story.
That's a good one.
I know, right? I'm like, ooh, that time. So I think now that we've spent a little bit of time talking about the philosophical framework to navigating change, I thought it would be really interesting, Coach Kyra, to think about your own career and use that as a lens to almost like extrapolate a checklist of things that people could do when faced with any kind of change. So tell us a little bit about kind of the changes you've had to face and then kind of how you respond to it a little bit more tactically.
For sure. And do you want me to only career, right? Or
you can share whatever you want. Yeah. This is beyond the books. This is not beyond the career.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So I would say one thing maybe that people don't always know about me is that I immigrated from Germany to the U.S. Mm-hmm. That was a big change that was thrust upon me, and in the moment hated that, was not a fan, did not want to leave my friends behind. But now, you know, looking back, that was probably one of the most formative and valuable experiences of my life. Mm-hmm. It exposed me to multiple cultures. I learned how to be very adaptable. There's pros and cons to that, right? But that was a very formative experience that gave me a lot of resilience, a lot of self-reliance and trust. Fast forward, I went to Berkeley. That's where we met. Go Bears.
Go Bears.
And I mean, all of us are good. Go Bears. Sorry, I'm like, wow, that was so long ago. Yikes. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I mean, I feel old now because I've known him for more time than that.
I know.
I'm like, oh yeah. I remember being in college and being like, ew, what is it like to be 5 years out of college? That's going to suck. And now it's been like 10. Now, anyway, okay.
More than that.
But, no. But so basically then went to Berkeley, and I remember putting so much pressure on myself. Like, I thought I had to figure it out. I thought I needed to know my major. And I really, looking back, kind of, that was maybe an area where I could have actually enjoyed the people that I was with more and had the glimmers more and appreciated all the good things in college, because I was so focused on getting the good grade, when in reality, I'm on this podcast because I know both of you, right? Like, it's like sometimes the skills that you build aren't even the most important thing. So that kind of taught me about networking and all of that. And then career-wise, I did not want to move home, and I did not get a lot of job offers, but I got one to be in sales, and I cold called 200 people every day for a year. And that was not really what I was trying to do with my life, but we needed to get paid and stay in the Bay Area because I was not moving home.
Talk about building emotional resilience.
200 people a day.
Yeah, I do like call everybody now. And I think I'm like a really strange millennial because I like call people, and people are always like, hey, why didn't you shoot me a text? And I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's trauma.
You need sass. No, okay.
Yeah.
I can't over time.
Yeah. So I did that. And yeah, any questions about, like, I don't know, hating your job every day, I guess.
Tell us how you really feel.
How did I really feel? The Sunday scaries were so scary. But looking back, I made some of the best friends ever that I'm still connected with today.
Right.
That I wouldn't trade that experience for the world, looking back. You know, but when you're in it, it's really hard to see that. And I think at that time I was also rocked more by experiences, and I didn't see the big picture because I was like, oh my gosh, is this what my life is going to be like forever? I'm going to have this terrible job for my whole life. Like, what?
To pause here from like a tactical perspective, what it kind of sounds like is you were in this job, wasn't your favorite job, wasn't what you knew you wanted to do with your life, but you were able to recognize that it wasn't what you wanted to do with your life. So it sounds like the first step was acceptance, you know,
or recognizing that you needed change.
Exactly, recognizing that you needed change.
Totally.
And then what you simultaneously did in that was you understood, what can I get from this situation, though, which I thought was really interesting. You met your friends, they're your network. Your network is very important and helps you to get other opportunities. You were talking about the resilience from phone calls and all these things. So you found these things to get. So it was know that you need to change and recognize that, and also take what you can from the situation.
100%. I think that experience taught me so much more than I could have even fathomed at that time. So, you know, take all the experience with a grain of salt and know you're probably there for a reason that you can't really figure out yet. But anyway, so this was at Oracle, and I was on a team of, I think it was like 50,000 salespeople.
Wow.
And I didn't even know. Yeah, it was so big.
Bigger than the town I grew up in.
Just a sea of salespeople. Yeah. And I remember thinking, you know, where does marketing sit? You know, where's product sit? Like, I don't even know what these people do. I have no idea. So that's when I realized, you know, okay, I want to learn more about what else is out there, because sales is maybe not the thing I want to do forever, or clearly not. So I thought, well, why not go to a small company, keep doing sales? Maybe I'll like it better at a small company. Who knows? But I was employee number 23 at a startup. Okay. And then that way I was able to interact with the founder, interact with the customer success leader, the product leader, the UX designer, like all these different people. And that gave me insight into what are the roles that make up a company and what are the things that I might enjoy more. Yeah. So, yeah.
Can I pause to ask you a tactical question?
Totally.
So, excuse me, taking the step from I'm in this company to I'm going to go to this exact opposite tiny company.
Yeah.
I think when we talk to a lot of our mentees on the Boba Talks platform, I find that there are a lot of folks who have asked me, like, I want to move from this small company to this giant company, from this giant company to this small company, just all these different size changes and just total changes of scenery. Normally because they're fed up with the scenery that they're in, they want to try something very different. Grass isn't always greener. I'll spoil that, but the good news is that it's possible to make these changes, which I think is important to recognize. So for you, how did you make that change from this big company to the small company? Like both tactically in terms of like, did you apply to get there? Did you network? What does that look like? Yeah. And then when you actually got to the small company, how did you kind of adapt into that?
Yeah, you know what? Okay, I think it was one of the recruiters that hired me at Oracle, and I was like, I am not stoked. Help me. Oh, and I think he just saw probably the pain in my entire being.
The pain
and he was like, let's chat. And actually, I think he was actually an independent recruiter. It was an independent recruiter, which I think is key because he had all these amazing connections. I'll have to give him a little shout out after this podcast. Yeah. He's the best. Anyway, so I kind of hit him up. And he introduced me to a founder who was starting this new company. And he was like, well, like, why don't you talk to this person? And we got coffee in Menlo Park. And one thing led to the next, and I had a contract within a week.
Wow. Cool.
So it wasn't like, I wasn't very intentional at the time about where I was going, why I was going. I was just kind of like, I just need anything to get out. And it was maybe more of like running away from a role than, which I don't, always necessarily recommend, but like, you know what?
This is the river. This is the river.
This is like this is how I learned to navigate these things. But so I did it maybe the way that's a little tougher, but I just went for it. And at the time,
you went whitewater rafting, the river, but it's a little choppy, but doing your thing.
But it was like I always kept these three things in mind. Like I was like, I know I want to work at a small company. I know I want to be in San Francisco. I was in I was in San Carlos, the city of good living. I was there and
Shout San Carlos.
San Carlos unite. Anyway, so I was there and I knew I wanted to be in the city. I was like 23, I was like, I just don't want to live in the peninsula right now. And then I wanted to make more money. So I was like, anything to make more money. Like that straight up, those were my three criteria. So I didn't care what company, I didn't care about the product, I didn't even care about the role.
If you haven't watched the first episode, go back to the first episode and go to the three criteria segment because
your non-negotiables.
You're seeing it in action right now.
Oh anyway, okay, continue. Cool. I'm glad that I hit that. I didn't even realize. Okay, great. Well, anyway, I think actually, Tyler taught me that. I feel like because he got to see all these little river rafting moments. So you had the highs and the lows. But anyway, so I went to that company, and then I learned more, and then I was like, I really want to help people. So that when you said that about your career, that really resonated with me, and just that you get so much joy and like glimmers and you recharge your battery by helping others. And I think I realized, hey, you know what I know? Sales is really hard. And like, maybe I should enable salespeople because I've literally been there and it's the worst. So I had that thought. I think I was talking to some people about it, and someone from my network that I had worked with previously at Oracle happened to be going to a company and happened to be starting up an enablement team, a sales enablement team at a mid-sized organization called Marketo. Random company, hadn't heard of them. I was so lucky because it was such a great brand and actually such a great product, and like really at a time where I think marketers were just like starting to really track revenue and get like their footing. So got really lucky. I got to work with super smart people and build a program from the ground up. And it was, I love mid-sized companies the best because you've got a little bit of foundation to lean on and awesome people that are usually wicked smart. And you've got a little bit of like leeway to build things. So And anyway, I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't kind of jumped around. So like the first 3 years out of school, I was all over the place. And I remember leaders telling me, you can't keep like quitting jobs and going to different places. And I was like, well,
watch me.
That's what I'm going to do. and it worked out. And I'm glad I did it because I found out really fast what I wanted.
Yeah.
And that was like, anyway, I didn't want to waste time, and I didn't want to do things I didn't want to do. And honestly, I'm glad I did it the way I wanted.
Yeah. And just to go back to the concept of, trying to extract from the checklist, like I love the story that you're telling about, your non-negotiables and like using that as a framework. I think also networking, we talked about that in our second episode. And like, this isn't an accident. It sounds like a happy accident. Sometimes you're just like, I just happened to tell someone from my network. Yeah. These people know Kyra. Yeah. These people.
It's 100% true.
Yeah. Like know that you do great work. You don't just randomly get thrown an opportunity just because you know someone. Those people have to know that Kyra is a wonderful person, does amazing work, and is driven. So I think that's also a piece that's important in terms of change. Is like this is almost like professional resilience in some ways, right?
Yeah.
Where you're setting yourself up from a networking perspective. And then
thank you. Well, thank you. Oh, and I was going to say, people always told me, Kyra, do a good job in the role you're currently in. Yeah. And other things will open up no matter what. Yeah. So I totally agree with you. And I think if I had been not hustling and doing my very best to cold call a gazillion people, I wouldn't have gotten help from that recruiter, right? So I totally agree that I guess you do kind of build your own luck a little bit.
Right, exactly. You build your own luck. Yeah. And then the other like checklist thing, aside from like kind of maintaining that network in a positive way, is it sounded like you may have not known where your end destination is, but you knew a general direction in which you wanted to go. Yeah. And so within the context of change, if it's like a very intense change and you get knocked on your feet or you get punched in the mouth or something, as you're starting to get up and coming back to your senses and having time to process, first thing you actually may want to do is think, like, what direction do I want to go? Maybe it's not sales. That's still a direction to me. Yeah. Maybe then you refine it to sales enablement, right? And then maybe of sales enablement, you start to work with marketers and you realize, oh, that's actually kind of cool. So I know I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but like it feels like that actually is a very good checklist of like going down the list and just saying, this can be used in any situation, whether it's job change, whether it's change in personal life. And I'll let you keep going.
No, totally. I was going to say too, like Tyler always says this, and I love that you say this, but it's like there's many roads lead to the same place, right? And like I think I used to be so like critical about, well, I talked to a mentor and they did it this way, and I'm not doing it that way, and how am I ever going to get to like this outcome because I want to be in the sales enablement role, right? And so, but your unique lived experience will shape your unique journey or your unique river that you're flowing down, and like there's just no way to know exactly how it's going to work out, and so following your own little clues through life will get you there faster than worrying about how somebody else did it.
Am I allowed to share about the Kyra curve?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Ooh, so I have my own glossary for Kyra. We've been through a lot of changes together, but I have a glossary for it. So Kyra has made a lot of changes to new companies, new jobs, all these things. And basically every single time there'd be the same pattern in the first 9 months. The first 3 months, she would be like, I'm going to get fired. They're going to lay me off. I'm doing a terrible job. Why am I here? Why am I allowed to be here? What is going on? Yeah. So the first 3 months, always like that without fail. Okay. The next 3 months was her finding her footing. Oh, I get this now. It's starting to jive. I'm really enjoying this. Like, I understand why I'm here. I'm adding value, kind of gaining that confidence. Yeah. And then the last 3 months to hit the Kyra curve as we go down is, I'm bored. Like I'm done. Okay. What can I do next? This is nice. I've learned enough. Like where do I go from here? And I think a lot of to what Kyra was saying, a lot of mentors and such would say, stick this out for the next 5 years or else you're never going to have a career. And but Kyra's the living example of sometimes if you just follow the things you're interested in, you make leaps at the right time. You're smart about it, but you're diligent and you're calculated in the way that you move forward. Yep. You can do things that people might say you're not able to do. And mentors and other people, even us sometimes might say, you should do it this way. But you can find to the point of they're all roads to the same place. There are always going to be different ways to solve for the same thing. You just need to make sure that you're following yourself and following kind of your intuition and moving with intuition with a smidgen of just smarts. Yeah. So in any case, it's a real thing. She's been very smart in her decisions, and that's why she is where she is, obviously.
Thank you. Thanks, man. But I think one thing that this is like making me realize that I was listening to my intuition more than I realized during my career, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, boredom and your like if you felt bored ever, that's wisdom. That's your body saying, I don't want to be here anymore. Like I want to do something different. And that's great. Like you said, then that means, okay, this is maybe not what I want to do, but I actually enjoy this more. Let me slowly move in that direction. And just because maybe you don't even know what the North Star is yet, you'll find the North Star if you keep following the little twists and turns as you go.
So just to summarize that, I think we're going to do the same thing.
Exactly.
So just to summarize, it sounds like that's why we're podcast co-hosts.
Wow, this is like fun to get to actually experience.
You're like sitting in between us. The signals like hit you on the way out.
How's it feel to be the third wheel?
I'm like, oh,
you're gonna get me in trouble. You're like, Tyler's not allowed to be on that podcast anymore. But sorry, so just to summarize the overall checklist for change, it sounds like number one, recognizing change is a bit, or when you might need to change. That's a big piece of it.
Yes.
The second one sounds almost like be curious and allow yourself to be curious. It's almost that like growth mindset of like, if you need to make a change and you don't know where, or if you're hit with the unexpected change, like allow yourself to be curious and explore the things that help you decide what's next.
Yep.
Right?
Totally.
Then it sounds like kind of have a general direction. In your case, it was not sales. In other people's cases, the curiosity can go hand in hand with, actually, I'm learning about this thing and maybe it's UX and I've never been in UX, but that sounds cool to me.
Explore it. Yep.
Go explore it. Listen to your intuition. You had just talked about that in the context of figuring out your path, and sometimes your intuition can help you. Sometimes it can just be like, well, the intuition is like, don't do this thing, and that's great too.
Yeah.
What else did I miss? Anything else?
No,
I think that's mostly it. It also, the other big one is, again, second episode, networking. Like constantly making sure that you're leveraging your network, you're keeping your connections fresh. You're making sure that you're showing up your best to everything you do, all that good stuff. But while you were talking, it reminded me of one other thing that Kyra didn't talk about that I got to witness in a lot of this change. And sometimes you have an intuition, but you might not be totally personally ready yet in your life situation to take a leap. One thing Kyra was very good at was figuring out, I have an interest in something. How do I learn more about how real my interest is in this before I move forward?
Oh, yeah.
So Kyra has taken so many classes.
That's so true.
And she's done everything.
Yeah.
There was at one point
Stand-up.
she was interested in stand-up comedy.
Cool.
There's one point she was interested in UX design. There was one point she was interested in architectural and interior design.
I literally was doing AutoCAD.
She even applied to a fashion program, a master's program, got into it.
Yeah.
But then when we visited in Amsterdam, she said, actually, this isn't for me. So in any case, the other thing here is there's this intuition, and sometimes your personal life and your circumstances aren't going to allow you to follow that intuition. But what you can start to do is figure out, how real is this? And then that can help you determine, do I have the confidence to go after this fully? So I did want to add that in because that's a real thing that Kyra is very good at.
Oh, thanks, Bill. No, I feel like, like have fun.
Yeah.
I feel like networking shouldn't be this like, ugh, I have to go network. Right. It's like, go hang out with your colleagues and go hang out with your friends and ask your friends questions about what they care about, or just like bond with people, because you never know how, you never know who knows who. I think that's another one. Like if you naturally are drawn to like, maybe I should connect with that person, or like my mom's friend, like that I haven't talked to, but maybe like, I feel like I should. Trust that. Like they'll probably know someone who knows someone, and then all of a sudden you'll be like in an interview, and I just think sometimes, again, to the surrendering point or to enjoying your life and having the glimmers, the more you like light up on the glimmers, the better off you probably will actually be. If you feel like you're forcing yourself, like it's probably not going to get you where you want to go.
It's
right?
True. Yeah.
And one last thing I was going to say before we go to the last segment here is, we're not going to necessarily touch on, once you have a direction, or once you how do you research a company? How do you prep for an interview? To me, that's something that people are already working on every day that we're not going to touch on here, but it stacks on very nicely to, once you know that general direction, a program you're interested in, a company you're interested in, you're just tacking on the normal recruiting stuff that you're doing on that end of it to get you out of kind of the change and into your next chapter.
I will say though, if you are interviewing and you're checking the box and you're doing all the things, if you're not having fun, you're probably not interested in the interview. Like if you're not be yourself, like lean into you, and some people aren't going to like it, and that's fine. You don't want to be there anyway.
That's right.
Like just be like, and don't worry about what you think they want to hear. Say what you think. Share what's on your heart, because people want to hear authentic stories. People don't want to hear made up gibberish. Okay. We can all smell BS like a mile away. So we are very interested in hearing people's stories and their authentic truths. So the more that you can be you and lean into the things that make you unique, the things that you enjoy, the things you're passionate about, that's what sparks interest. That's what sparks connection. And if you connect with the person you're interviewing with that way, I think you'll actually be more successful. And even if it doesn't work out, you've now made a wonderful connection and you've had a wonderful conversation. You can be like, hey, if you hear of anything else, let me know. Yeah. This has been fun. This has been a fun conversation. Like, don't think about it. Don't give yourself a break. Have a little fun with it. I think that is so healthy when you're thinking about interviewing and networking. And I just think we get serious sometimes. It's like, this is not fun. Not enough glimmers. Get more glimmers.
More glimmers.
I know. So from a timing perspective, I should be moving us to our very last segment. I do have one last question, though. That's kind of a hardball because I think it's important.
Okay.
Sometimes, and I'm going to use you as an example, and I'd love for you to speak to this. Sometimes you make changes that are changes for your life, where your career is part of the consideration set, but it's not the only consideration. And the big one for us was actually moving out of San Francisco and out of the Bay Area, where at a time when people were starting to go back to work, or at least go back hybrid. But during that time, we actually moved from San Francisco and made a big leap and moved to the greater Sacramento area. And in doing that, it's a very counterintuitive change from a career perspective if you're like, I'm trying to grow and be the next VP or whatever of a business.
Yeah.
So I did want to ask you about the tactical way that you thought through that piece, because I think that one is, there are a lot of folks who I've been mentees on Boba Talks, and they have to go through a lot of personal change, but they're weighing different things with their career, their families, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious kind of how you thought through that step when it comes to change.
After 5 years of therapy.
Which, I mean, that's great. That's a good step. That's a great step.
Okay, so I'll be honest. I'll be authentic. I mean, I just said be authentic. I had an anxiety attack in, I think I was 28, 27?
27.
Yeah, 27. And at the time, I was working at Salesforce. I had the big job in the big tower. We were living in Hayes Valley, which is in downtown San Francisco. I was basically walking to work. I mean, it was like I lived in the city. I worked in the city. I had all my friends in the city. Like, on paper, my life looked amazing, but I didn't actually feel good inside. And I was so stressed, and I was putting a ton of pressure on myself. And Mike Costow, such an amazing leader. He's like one of my favorites. I'm so lucky I got to work with him. But he was the general manager of our business at the time. And he asked me, like, how are you doing? And it was right before Dreamforce, right? Yeah. Salesforce is really big customer conference. And I lost it. I just cried in public. And I just had a total anxiety attack meltdown. Anyway, I called a therapist up and I was like, I don't know what that was about. And she was like, girl, that was an anxiety attack. And I was like, okay, good to know. So anyway, I started working through, what was causing that anxiety. And I think I was giving too much attention to work. And if I thought about my life pie, work was taking up more than 30 or 40% of all of my energy. And I was missing out on being spiritual or having more time for friends or giving myself time to be creative and have hobbies. And it's like I had a bad relationship with work where it was one-sided, work kept taking and I kept giving and it wasn't healthy. So I think over the last couple of years have been working on what is it that Kyra really wants? How can I make myself happy? How do I fill my own cup? And taking savoring glimmers, enjoying, we planted a bunch of trees. My life looks completely different now because I thought I was going, I thought I was going after what I wanted in my 20s, and I totally was in that phase. And now I'm actually, I just want to look at butterflies, read books, drink my matcha, read a book. I literally, we chucked our San Francisco badass life. We chucked that out of the window and just completely tried something different and totally surrendered and went after a completely different set of things. We wanted to buy this house. We wanted to slow down. And honestly, I think it's actually helped our careers in a way that we didn't anticipate. And again, it's kind of going with it, allowing the river that is your life to flow and just being okay with the fact that maybe what you worked towards wasn't actually really what you realized you needed or wanted. And then now you've changed your mindset and what you needed.
Well, I feel
like this is such a long-winded answer. Did I get to what you wanted?
It's perfect. I think to round out kind of this segment, what I would say is the last step, it sounds like, is just to have courage. The last step is to make sure you know, going back to the first step, it was recognizing you need change. But then having the courage to pursue that and know that as long as you're pursuing it, you're giving things your all, you're, tapping all these different things we've talked about along the way. You can make changes happen. And also know if, it doesn't work out, you can always figure out something else, which is a good thing to have in mind.
So what was the list again? It was be curious. No,
Yeah.
recognizing you need to
Recognize the
change.
need for
So
change.
anxiety attack.
Okay.
Okay, recognizing you need to change.
I thought you were adding anxiety.
No, that was my
That's the
recognition of needing
indented
change.
Needed
Then I
that.
got really curious. I explored my inner world in therapy,
Yeah.
right? What was the next one?
Networking.
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 Yeah,
I was
network.
talking to people about it. I was trying to figure out what I wanted. It took a little while. We were working on that together. What do we want as a unit?
Yeah.
And then
Pick a direction.
Pick direction.
Yeah.
Go with your
General
intuition.
direction.
and
Go with your
remember when we
intuition.
were like, maybe we
Yeah.
should move there, huh?
Yeah.
And then like all these things just it was like the
Yeah.
stars aligned, like weird stuff started happening where I was like, okay,
Yeah.
but you just follow that, you
There
know,
you go.
and then
Yeah.
here we
Yeah.
are, and now we're
Here
on
you
a
are,
podcast,
And
and
we got some
Hanging out.
courage.
we're having
Yeah.
some fun,
Yeah.
and being courageous, I guess. I don't know. I didn't really think of it as courage, but I
I
guess
think that's right.
I think
I
so.
think that's right. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
it makes me feel better to say that about what we did versus I quit my job and did
I was
this.
gonna say, actually, I don't know if it's courage, but I think it's like, do your thing relentlessly and don't worry about anybody else. Because I do
Yeah.
think everybody, when we were made, a lot of people were like, really, you're gonna leave the city? Like, everybody's gonna want you to come back. And so we
Right.
got a lot of like, I would say, people being kind of surprised. And I think
Right.
if other people think what you're doing is weird, it's probably good.
Well, I think
You're doing you.
This is like the perfect transition to the next segment because I think generalizations are something we all deal with. We
Yeah.
talk to different folks, whether it's mentors, friends, our parents, whomever, just
Yeah.
trying to get advice, and people say, "Oh, you can't do this, you can do that." And so, if you watch these episodes, true or false is the segment that
Yeah.
we've got going
Oh,
on.
yeah, yeah, okay.
We're going to go through some true and false myths about change. So, I'll
Yeah,
kick it to
we'll do
Ben
this
first.
quickly. I know we've been going on for a while. So first one is job changes can be scary. Or
Yes.
always can be scary, sorry. Can
I
always
would say true. I think
Okay.
naturally for people, I think it's a little bit fear
right.
invoking.
Initially,
Yeah.
Maybe,
right.
but as long as you're taking care of yourself, you know, and you're maybe like ground down, anchor,
emotional resilience.
take care of yourself, and it will feel less scary.
Yeah. I get this one a lot from mentees. I need a master's degree to change
No.
careers.
Not even. I have made so many changes, and I just start doing the job. Just start doing the
There
job.
you go. Just start doing the job. Prove to people
Yeah.
that you can do the job, and
Yeah.
then you'll get the.
I mean, if it's
Yeah.
neurosurgery, maybe go get your education, right? But like, okay,
Please.
in business, like,
Right.
you know,
I
I
agree with
think
that.
I would
Yeah.
I would just start, see if you can get there, like, see if you can network and meet people who are doing what you're
Okay.
interested in. And
Mhm.
I would say no, like, definitely not,
Yeah.
not in business.
Unless you actually want a master's degree and you feel like that
For
would
the
be
sake
an
of
enriching
having it,
experience,
yeah.
sure. But is it necessary? Coach Kyra says false.
Hell no. So
No.
she said. Oh, sorry.
True.
Put that money into the stock market.
There you go. There you go. Well, and speaking of money, that's my next one, which is you need to be financially stable in order to pursue change.
Well, okay, my gut is like no, but I would
Yeah.
say it depends on your unique circumstance.
Yeah,
You know,
For some people, it could be
I
important.
think it
very true.
depends. Yeah, I think maybe like I would say I'm someone who needs a lot more security to make a jump or to make a leap. I would say you're more like risk tolerant, where you're maybe like more okay making a leap. And anyway, I just think honor your needs.
That's a good way
Yeah,
of
it's
putting
good.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's no right way.
Your passion can be your career.
Yeah, I think your passion can be your career. I also think that's a gift and a curse.
Okay.
Okay.
I know people who so I think of a lot of my friends who really want to be lawyers, and they're lawyers and they love what they do, but they work 24/7.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
and people
True. True.
and people
True.
who I've talked to who do what they love, they say, I love what I do. or these lawyers in particular, like, I love that I get my clients out of jail. I love that I protect them, whatever it
Right.
is. But they're like, you know, I haven't seen a doctor in like 3 years, you know? So it's like, so I was going to say, like, you know, careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, it depends
Yeah.
on what you want. If you want, and there might be phases of your life where you really want your passion to be what brings also your, like your needs for like life to you. You may also want to have a job where you could just like log in and log out and not even think about it and have it just be like a sliver of
Yeah,
your life
sure.
if you want to
Yeah.
focus on something else at that time. Like, yeah. I just, again, you do you.
There you go. Passion can lead to relentlessness, and it can lead to joy, and it's hard to sometimes distinguish.
Yeah. So don't be so hard on yourself if you feel like your current job is not your
Yeah.
passion.
There you go.
I would
And,
say give
yeah,
yourself
and
a break.
Talking about change, to close it out, the statement is you are never too old to make a change.
Oh, no,
in your
yeah.
career.
You're never too old.
No.
Vera Wang started designing wedding dresses at 40.
Mic drop right there.
Yeah, there's and there's so many examples of that. So many examples of that. Like, that's just like the one that came up to the top
Okay.
of my mind. But oh my gosh,
Cool.
like life just gets richer. So
Yeah.
just keep rolling with the changes. And when you you know, notice, ooh, I don't like this anymore, see what happens next and roll with it.
100%. That's beautifully said. Beautifully said. I think we're coming to the end of our podcast this time. We're grateful that you've joined us here. The way that we like to close these out is to go around and do a quick, if you could remember one thing from today's episode, what would that be? So I'll kick it to you to start.
Enjoy the glimmers.
Enjoy the glimmers.
Yeah, and bank them.
Yeah, bank those
right?
glimmers.
You charge your phone every day. Charge yourself. Charge yourself up.
There you go. I'm going to extrapolate a point that seemed common, but we never actually said it. But like, your community is actually very essential to change. You talked about your network.
You're making me blush.
I didn't talk about you, dude. I'm just saying your network. I was kidding. No, right. But like, we talked around it, but I don't think we actually addressed it. And so it goes back to like, lean on your community, lean on your friends, lean on Boba Talks, lean on your podcast co-host and his wife.
Yeah.
And you'll find a way. Yeah,
and be authentic. Sure, like, I just told you I had an anxiety attack. Like, be you and like own it, because people love that and will want to help you. Yeah.
I think I will close this out then just to say, I think what I would take away from this conversation is the intuition piece. I think all of us collectively, I know these two obviously very, very well, but we've all made collective intuition changes that felt like we knew it was the right thing and we just needed to do it versus fighting it. One, like, for example, we've never talked about this with Ben, but when the pandemic hit, Ben lived in the Bay Area, but then very quickly moved down to Southern California, where we're filming this right now. And originally, did he want to stay a few more years? It was on the roadmap to stay a few more years. Was I sad? Absolutely. But was it right for him because he got to come here, be near his family, start his new family? Yes, and it was the right thing at the right time, even though it felt like he had this plan and he needed to change it. So I think by following intuition, it just really helps us get to where we want to go. And as long as we have your community along the way and these glimmers that you've banked, you can make that happen. So that is our show for today. Thank you for joining us. And remember that the best chapters in life are the ones you write yourself. We'll see you next time.
See y'all.